What is up? So I wanted to talk about a similarity between bulking and cutting that I don't think a lot of people really consider. So, for one, this video is directed more towards former fat asses like myself. Okay, if you're not a former fat ass, if you are somebody who the idea of a bulk, that you have trouble gaining weight, that you're naturally skinny and your biggest problem is eating enough to be able to gain muscle, can't seem to move the scale up, well, this is not for you. This is for the rest of us, many of us being former fat asses like myself. Anyway, so start out quickly. You may have heard, if you watched any of my other videos or read any of my posts on Facebook or whatever, that my last bulk, if you really want to call it that, was just basically I don't even know, 6 to 12 month binge fest. Basically, I mean, I just ate whatever I wanted. I didn't count calories. I didn't really track. I think I did try for the most part to at least be hitting my protein, the minimum that I needed, but a lot of times probably didn't even do that. I wish I had good data on that, but anyway, needless to say, I gained like 40-50 pounds within a year. So, and it took me a year to take that off. And I know that I did gain a little muscle between now and then, just because of the fact that seeing myself at the same weight at 155, I do have more definition and a little more size than I did before. It's not like, I want to say, it's not impressive. It's not a huge difference, but it's it's a very realistic, more than realistic, natural progression. And I probably could have gone a lot better if I had dialed in my training and my nutrition better and saved a lot of time, taking off excess fat that I could have spent bulking the right way. Anyway, so now that I am attempting to bulk the right way for the first time, which is basically about a 125 to 250 calorie surplus is what I'm going for. Trying to stay within that range, which will get me a quarter pound to a half pound per week weight gain. I'd like to stay closer to a quarter pound, because realistically there's no way that at this stage in my training that I'm going to gain 12 pounds of muscle in a year. So I know that if I gain a pound a month, more is going to be fat than 2 pounds a month. Yeah, like a lot of that's going to be fat. So I definitely want to limit that, because I don't want to cut for a straight year like I did before. I never want to cut that long again. I would like to get back to regular mini cuts. But anyway, so on to the point now that I've rambled. Why are bulking and cutting so similar? Well, if you're doing it the right way, as a natural, ideally you would like to stay within the 10 to 20% body fat range. You know, obviously you can go leaner if you're trying to, you know, get super shredded for whatever. If you're competing or something, you know, that's another realm, okay? But for the average guy that still wants to, you know, kind of be in decent health, right? Because over 20% body fat, not that healthy. Under 10%, not that healthy. You know, usually somewhere in between there is kind of the sweet spot. Plus, within that range is when you look the best, when you're natty, right? You know, you get too lean, you just start looking skinny. You get too big, well, you just look fat. You're not going to look big and shredded at the same time as a natty, right? You know, unless you're very advanced, and even then, it's still... So anyway, so we want to stay within that range, right? So, after coming off of a cut, especially if it's a long-term cut, like the one I was on, your appetite is like crazy. It just starts, you know, going up and up and up, right? The longer you're on it. So I'm still hungry, and I'm eating right now at a rate where I am slowly gaining weight, but I still have to watch what I eat because I don't want to gain too fast. So it still feels like I'm on a cut, even though I'm eating about 600 to 700 calories more right now per day than I was on my cut. Plus, when I was on my cut, if I ate too much one day, okay, no big deal. I know how to fast. I've dry fasted for 3 days, no food, no water, no nothing, and I was fine. Okay, so if it really comes down to it, I can do that. But if I'm on a bulk, my focus is on maximizing muscle growth. That means I need energy to give every set my all in the gym. It means I need to be fucking moving that bar. I need to be able to constantly be adding weight and adding reps. So I need the energy, and I also, you know, I need the fuel to rebuild. Okay, so I don't want to waste time in the middle of my bulk taking my body out of a growth phase, a growth mode, basically, to just burn off the calories that I ate last night, right? So actually today would be a good example because my son's going on a little vacation, so we went out to eat with him before he leaves, and you know, we went to Applebee's and, you know, had a nice meal. I ended up going over by about 1,700 calories over my target, you know, but it's one day, okay? But here's the shitty thing. That one day, I just have to accept, okay, well, that's a little extra fat that I gained. There's nothing I can do about it now, okay? Because I'm committed to this growth phase. So I just have to accept that that's just extra fat, and I have to wait until my next mini cut, you know, which hopefully will be in about 6 months. I'm trying to space it out at least that long. I don't want to grow too fast. So that means that, yeah, it's even worse than it was on my cut, believe it or not, if I overeat. So, and you would think, because we view bulking as, oh man, now I can finally eat like I want to. Well, You can, but you're just gonna be a fat ass. And I'm guessing if you're in this game, that's not the look you're going for, right? So those days are over, bud. Sorry to tell you, but yeah, now even when you're in a growth phase, you still got to watch what you eat. You got to start eating responsibly. I know that's a hard notion. We've had this drilled into our heads that bulking is just like, you know, you go all out. Now you can eat that pizza every night or whatever the fuck. I mean, you can, you know, and you can plan your diet around it too. You know, night before last, I had 1,000 calories to spare at the end of the day. My wife was going to McDonald's. I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll go with you. I got a large fry and a McFlurry, an Oreo McFlurry. Hadn't done that in a while, but it's nice to do that once in a while, you know? But it fit, okay, because I had already met my protein requirements, and the fat and the carbs, I'm going for a minimum of 50 grams of fat, but I'm trying to keep my fat relatively low. So, you know, ideally, I'd like to maybe do like 50 to 75 grams of fat, about 180 grams of protein, and 300 plus grams of carbs. For all the carbophobes out there, I know that sounds like blasphemy, but believe me, it makes a difference. It fucking gives you crazy energy. Okay, I'm like already hitting numbers in the gym that, you know, okay, look, even when I was on my cut, I was constantly hitting PRs. Okay, up until the end, you know, except on a couple lifts, you know, like bench and squat. Those are notorious for you know, suffering when you're on a cut, as your body fat gets lower. But now I'm like already, I'm moving up quicker now than I was, and I mean, it's awesome, you know, but that's partly because I've upped my carbs. You know, adding in a bunch of extra fat isn't really doing you that much good. You know, your body will use so much fat, but after that, it's just like whatever. It's going to be turned into sugar eventually anyway, you know, so why not just fucking take it in sugar form so that your body runs more efficiently. You know, look, our bodies fucking run on sugar. Sorry to break it to you. Okay. Anyway, but look, again, I'm not telling people what diet to eat, okay? I'll work with people, you know, whatever diet, you know, they prefer. But, you know, for me, I'm doing this because it works for me. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of go into that. You know, I'm kind of on a tangent now, but yeah, I mean, even bulking, if you're trying to do this shit seriously, you know, you still got to eat like you're cutting. So I guess that's pretty much it. I'm gonna cut this short. So until next time, take care.